Yeah.
In here so quietly and quickly. Turned my head and I looked over and you there.
Just like magic. So. Anyway, to grant his degree in mechanical engineering from University of Ottawa and a degree in nuclear engineering from McMaster. And she wanted me to because you come up with
Give me this back.
Yeah, and like luckily this year I've been able to like sit there and like engage in more
So-
it's been cool, but yeah, and I would sit back here.
Before we start the meeting, I'd like to ask Councillor and Deputy Mayor David Kroll and also Dave Code from Gibsons Rotary. I think Councillor Kroll is going to be leading this, but we're just starting off before we start our meeting, we're going to recognize our youth representative and our youth representatives for council for their service this past year.
Thank you, Mayor White. Back in, and I'm time travel here, back 2018, when we were campaigning for my first term, I mentioned to a gentleman who became mayor how I sensed youth in the community felt disenfranchised from what we do in this room. And at that time, Mayor Beamer said, oh, and we chatted a bit, and then the night of his inauguration address, he announced that we would have a student on council. And to that end, in 2019, we got into a similar situation as this year. We found two amazing people who became sort of the student on council and the alternate, but they were both grade 12 students. So at the end of our first term, we were back to square one with having to get a student and an alternate. So from that point on, we've had that. From the beginning of the program, through the generosity of Rotary, they share the expense of the student stipend with us. So there was a bit of concern how taxpayers might react if their taxes were to go up to pay for youth on council, which I had no objection to, but perception, Rotary is amazingly supportive of the Interact program at the high school, and it just seemed a natural fit. We have a plaque in the front hall that sort of commemorates the collaboration between Rotary and the town and the students' names. Mr. Rockford's name is on it this year, and I think Kyle Reed's going to be on it next year. But, you know, we've come to the end of a term, which is sort of sad. We've had two amazing young people who have given us incredible insight into our community. I think it's very important that we have that lens through the eyes of tomorrow. And I think most of people in the room might be aware, people outside the room may not be aware. Back in 2022, Mr. Rockford mentioned the difficulty as a student getting around our community. And as a result of that, we formed a Transportation and Accessibility Committee. And there was Colton, Anna Latese, and Ellen Eaton. And then when the province mandated that we have an accessibility committee, we morphed our committee into a slightly larger committee, adding a couple of more members, Don Miller, Chris Hirschenheimer, Councillor D'Andretti became the alternate liaison. And, you know, great progress has been made. Back in, I guess it was January 26th, Colton, Kale, and Anna did a delegation to the regional district advocating for free student transport for students. one of the most professional delegations I've seen before any council or board. CBC picked up on it. They did a follow-up interview. They sent a reporter up here and did an interview on the bus. I think that aired February 2nd on the coast. Huge advocacy for students, for transportation, advocating for our climate, and Colton's also become involved with the whole poverty reduction, people's homelessness, and again, how transportation is so key to accessibility in a community. And by students having free transport, it reduces the strain on families in need. So, the bar has really been raised this year by our students, and I can only commend them for what they've done and the support that Rotary's given us for this project. It's a great project.
that if we put in some energy, we can really accomplish whatever we set our mind to. So I've learned so much in this experience, and it's been awesome. And
You want to end it? We're gonna make sure it's done and like
Sorry.
ready for you guys when the council resumes in September.
Okay.
Just making sure we get like show all the like wide range of opinions that we had.
it's
Yeah.
what we got August for.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you, Colton. And I additionally want, it was touched upon earlier in Councillor Kroll's presentation, but I want to confirm that Kayla Reed has been appointed as our youth representative for the next year. So congratulations, Kale, and we look forward to working with you. Yeah. And we need to find a grade 11 alternate, so we're hoping you can help with that too in the recruitment process.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you all.
Thank you, Dave. So now officially calling the meeting to order at 7:13 PM. This is calling this regular meeting of council for July 25th, 2023. We're honored to gather here on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. And first, we need to approve the agenda. Councillor DeAndrade moved, seconded by Councillor Kroll. All those in favor? That motion carries. And we have one set of minutes to adopt, which was our regular council meeting of July 4th. I just need a motion, Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor of adopting those minutes? That carries. And we have a this is a bylaw for 426 Gower Point Road This is the one that we saw. So this came to committee, and we moved to move this ahead at the next meeting, the first and second reading. First, I'll just ask, are there any questions about this for planning staff? No? Okay, so I see that moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. And that is for first and second reading of the OCP amendment and the zoning amendment bylaw, and further that a public hearing be scheduled for this when we've even got a time. So it's 6:45 on September 5th, 2023. So that's and then there's a piece about the waste management plan that needs to be in there too. So is there any discussion of the motion? No, we've already talked about this at Committee of the Whole. All those in favor? The motion carries. And we don't need to receive minutes, do we? Yeah, so that we don't need a motion on 6.11. But we do have some recommendations from that Committee of the Whole meeting. 6.12, moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion carries. And then there's a further recommendation from that meeting, 6.13, regarding permissive property tax exemptions, and that they be given a 1-year term, and that vacant and underutilized lots be revisited by council, which we'll probably do in a workshop setting. Just moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any discussion of that motion? Councillor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to, it's a little bit of justification because I opposed last time in the Committee of the Whole. I think my concern was because last year, Council made a decision to postpone, not to act on the permissive taxes for affordable housing because we were going to do we were going to act this year, and my concern is nothing happened. So now I'm just asking the question, how can we, who will be responsible for bringing this back to council in time so we can have plenty of discussions and everybody, because it involves financial, the director of finances, involve other staff. So how can we make sure that this comes and we have enough time for discussion? And
the CAO and
decision?
me.
Okay.
That's that's generally when we set a direction from council. That's how we need to carry. That's generally how we carry things out. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. Because we only extended the permissive tax credits for a year, and by legislative process, they have to be applied for and reviewed for the next tax year. So, even though we've said it's a year, because of the deadline for it, it's not a huge amount of time that we have to. So, it was why when I brought it up at the time, I said, with respect to staff's capacity, if we only do it for a year, to be able to, make this all happen in a timely manner. But I think in my council report, already there's been progress from this action. So I'm feeling very positive about it.
We'll take it under advisement that we need to act on this.
Yeah, and especially because when
Year goes by
January
fast.
it starts as a big avalanche of things and taxes and sometimes a discussion. And this is important to discuss in depth. And perhaps council in the discussion would make more recommendations for more information. And so I just want to start as early as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that input.
Then I would support.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. And then we have another one. So this was actually the one that I think you were opposed to, Councillor DeAndrade, which is 6.1.4. And that's that staff be instructed on proceeding, instructed to proceed with preparing the bylaw, the bylaw that'll last for 1 year. We're on 6.14 now, or 6. No, yeah, we did. We just voted on that one. You actually moved that one. We're on 6.1.4 now. So everybody else, yeah. So that's, as I mentioned, I already spoke to that one, and I'll move it. I guess I can move things. Seconded by Councillor Kroll. I usually don't prefer to, but any discussion of this? All those in favor? The motion carries. And then also from our committee meeting, we had a presentation on the Housing Accelerator Fund application. Urban Matters joined us to report on their work in assisting the town in this and working with the planning department. And we came out with a recommendation from that as well, which is listed at 6.1.5. And we need to move it. Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? The motion carries. And then we have the batch 3 temporary use permits that also came to committee. And there were 4 here that were all they're all being recommended to be authorized for expiry of December 31st, 2024. Moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? That motion carries. On to administration reports. And this matter, car-free in Lower G special event proposal, was also presented at the Committee of the Whole meeting. We don't make decisions on delegations, though, so this is coming to this meeting, or immediately on delegations anyway. And there's a staff report associated with this. And Tracy Hinks is available on Zoom this evening if we have any questions about this. So I'm just looking for council first for questions. I see Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. I have no problem. I think it's a great movement to suggest, no car. The only thing I do have a bit of a concern with is on the plan that they have provided. It's agenda page 33. They've numbered how the different areas are going to be used, and where they're proposing closing the street off, which is sort of at where the path goes down into Weingarten Park, between Wynn Road and that point, I guess they're trying to maintain parking. I just have a bit of a concern that that's parking in a turnaround area. Just looking at it, you've got an event, you've got a beer garden, you've got people in sort of an up-tempo, carefree mood, people backing out of parking stalls and trying to turn their vehicles around, and people pulling in, not realizing they're not going to get parking because they're bringing a car to a non-car event. That was the only thing. I just thought it would be a safer thing if they closed the road at Wynn and didn't have access to that point, but that's just my 2 cents worth at this point.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression from reading that the thinking was maybe the vendors who are bringing things down would be using that parking and dropping off, but it does say parking, yeah. And the turnaround point, I kind of caught my eye too.
Then for
like
follow-up,
there isn't
sir,
really a
if we
turn.
could get clarification on that, because
Let's actually, can we promote Tracy to see her? On this particular topic too? Yeah, Councillor Thompson?
I asked the question when we were in Committee of the Whole, and it was my understanding that it was the same closure that we had always done with Sea Cavalcade. So I'm just curious if this is not exactly what it was in past history.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, but it's making room for parking in one spot. I don't know if that was done for Sea Capital. I just kind of remember it always being blocked off right by the post office. But we'll ask Tracy.
Yeah, so I think the intent for that parking lot is for bicycles and bicycle parking, valet parking, that kind of thing as well, is what I understood from his presentation.
Okay. Councillor Kroll?
They did mention bike parking and sort of valet bike parking, so if that's what Area 5 is and the road is in fact going to be closed to vehicles that win, then I don't have an issue. But if we could get clarification on that.
No clarification before issuing the permit. I'm wondering about the timing here, Tracy. We've got a council meeting on September the 5th, but that doesn't, it wouldn't give them a lot of time if we put this off. But curious. Councillor Kroll has one more point on that before you answer.
All I would ask for is clarification and suggest that it not be a vehicle access area and the road officially be closed at Wynn. And if we can make that a condition of the permit, I'll support the permit.
Certainly, make note of that.
Councillor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. It's just a clarification. I understand there's insurance of $2,000, and then there's a payment of $300 cleanup and a fee of $300 for the special events. So, is it the $300 for the fee to cover the insurance, or is there an expense? Just trying to understand the mathematics here.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the question. So there's a $300 deposit for cleanup, and that's so that the site is left as they received it prior to the event. The $2 million insurance is the special risk insurance required for an event such as this. And then the special event business license allows them to sell liquor. It's a special event business license through our bylaw officer that will allow them to, there's going to be other vendors there, and that allows them to operate in the town and still be compliant with our bylaws.
Councillor DeAndrade?
And so who pays for the fee for the insurance? Is it the town? That's why I was curious. Is it the fee that covers? What's the?
It's the event organizers who will pay the fee.
Any other questions? I want to say too that I think this proposal I'm supportive, but I think in future we should definitely and I regret at the meeting too, the last committee meeting, not taking that opportunity to tell the presenter that we need some more information. But one thing I really would like to see is we asked about BC Transit at the meeting. Confirmation from some of these partners prior to this point of having to issue a permit. I would like to see, I'm confident that TRAC has been in touch with BC Transit, but it would be nice to actually see a letter or even at least an email from BC Transit saying, yes, we support this event and here is how we're adjusting our service for those hours. That would help, I think, council and especially our staff a lot to have that confidence from the event organizers to do that work and supply us with that kind of information. And furthermore, I think letters of support would be helpful for something this significant. The Chamber of Commerce, some of the local businesses that are on that route. I'm a bit disappointed not to see those. I'm confident that TRAC is a very well connected local group, and I'm confident in their ability. They've done this in the last couple years as well, put on successful events. So I still have confidence in them to do this. But I think in future, I think it would help the entire town a lot to have a little more support behind a proposal like this before it comes to council. Yeah, with that said, I really support summer events and really support the notion of car-free day. So I think I'm hoping we'll support this. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. To your point, my biggest concern with this would be the BC Transit, because they've expressed to us that they don't put buses on South Fletcher, because we inquired at the earlier point about the library and getting, bus service on the street. So people, had to stop in front of the library, which makes a lot of sense. So I am a little concerned from the BC Transit point that you've raised. And I don't know whether you can, whether we can issue the permit with a caveat that we would like to see a letter of support for this from BC Transit. I don't,
What does staff think of that if we had pending a?
You're suggesting making the approval of the permit on the
on
condition
the condition
that
that
BC Transit.
BC Transit issues a letter of support that they have an alternate transit route in place.
Well, I could defer to Tracy whether she thinks that's a viable option, but it seems reasonable.
It was concerning to me too when I asked the question, and the presenter said, "Well, we've got support from BC Transit, or is it TransLink?"
Yeah.
Like, it's BC Transit. I mean, but yeah, we need a little more. I'd like to really have a little more confidence in that. Anyway, maybe Tracy can elaborate.
Thank you, Mayor. I have seen a email from after last week's presentation. I reached out to the event organizer and asked for confirmation from the SCRD's transit folks, and I did get an email from this event organizer with correspondence back and forth between the manager at transit for the SCRD. No plan was attached to that. There was no true confirmation, but there was definitely dialogue going on with that in mind.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the manager. So does that seem a feasible motion then, Tracy? Do you think that you're suggesting then that they already have the dialogue going, so they likely could provide that to council?
Absolutely.
Okay, or even to staff. I mean, if the authorization might be happening in August or something. Yeah, we may not have to meet if we pass a motion that says kind of pending that. I just want to seek clarity from all of council too on that point, that concern about the parking between Wynn and Wine Garden Park too. It sounds like it might be bike parking, which I think would be acceptable. I mean, if there's a number of vendors there, it would make sense that they might need to bring cars or trucks down to bring their, but yeah, public parking. Maybe that would be a caveat. It's not, we're fine with the parking concept, but not public parking. Does that make sense, Councillor Kroll?
Well, on the plan they provided, they did in their presentation mention the parking for bicycles, and I think there was even mention of potential charging for EV bikes, but that may be something else with track I'm confusing. But I think the potential hazard of having the general public venture into a dead-end street and be trying to turn around annoyed that they got this far and they can't go any further, I think it's just ripe for disaster. So I would really like clarification that it's vendors only and the valet bike parking.
Okay, so
Another
can we work that in too, that the parking be vendors only and bikes, yeah. Into
That is definitely something we could ask them to do.
Okay. So with that caveat in the language, and with approval from BC Transit, written confirmation that of support from BC Transit and SCRD / Sunshine Coast.
I'm going to try articulating the motion with
Okay,
those
great.
caveats to make sure we're on the same page. So just based on what we have here, the staff be authorized to grant exemptions to section 5A, F, G, and O of the Town of Gibson's Public Places Regulation Bylaw number 1012, 2005 for the purpose of issuing a public use permit to the organizers of the Car Free and Lower G special event for the 2023 year only. And I would leave the second paragraph the same, but I would add and further that the permit be granted on the condition that the organizers of the event produce a letter of support from BC Transit indicating that BC Transit is in support of the proposed activities. Something like that.
Yeah, let's say Sunshine Coast Transit, because they're
Sunshine
kind of
Coast
a wing of BC Transit. It's likely going to be coming from the SCRD.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And further that the parking area and turnaround be closed to public parking, that it not be for public parking.
Okay.
Or something along those lines, have I got the right idea?
Councillor Kroll, do you have a?
The only thing I would add to the transit component is, and that BC Transit provide the alternate route, because that's something we're going to need. We can't. I don't think we can rely on the organizers to make it publicly known the alternate bus route for this event. It's stuff that we're probably going to have to put on the town website and get out whatever way we can. But I'm just reflecting back, just in the years that we had the Sea Cavalcade Parade, and the bus route was denied access to the Bay Area for the duration of that parade. There was a fair bit of pushback that the Sea Cavalcade Committee got. So I don't think, the Bay can be cut off from access with public transit.
Director of Infrastructure.
If I may, I would be highly skeptical that any of the buses that the Sunshine Coast Transit runs would be able to maneuver turning left from School Road onto South Fletcher. So I think that my assumption would be that the closing of that would mean closing the bus service to Lower Gibsons or to the Bay Area of Lower Gibsons for the duration of the event.
Kroll.
BC Transit does have 3 handy darts and they only use 1, so there's an option they could probably run a handy dart through the bay that could offer service just to that area with a drop-off that connected to the main route.
Okay, we have proposed wording for a motion.
So is the motion then amended to add that clause, that there be?
We haven't made it yet, so I don't think there's an amendment, but
Okay.
So an added clause, so?
I just think we need to know, a letter of support from BC Transit is one thing, but, are they able to provide an alternate service to those residents in the bay?
But we are, so far the language suggests that we're authorizing this pending the support though, so it's not going to come back to us, is the current proposal.
So I want to be clear.
If we
before-
ask for more information, it's not going to be helpful. But Corporate Officer?
Sorry, excuse me. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess what I'm looking for is specifically the direction to staff as to, are we okay with granting the permit upon getting exactly what it is we're supposed to get? So, so far I have, and that the issuance of the permit be subject to the event organizers providing the town with a letter from Sunshine Coast Transit expressing support for the event. And I'm a little unsure, but the next part could say, and indicating plans for provision of alternative services. that work?
Sounds good.
We've done that in the past.
Yeah.
And then, and further, that would be that the parking turnaround area not be for public parking.
Okay, that work. Okay, I'll take that as a moving, he's moving motion, that's a motion by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? That motion carries. And I think we're ready for 7.2 now, which is a contract award for SharePoint implementation. There's a report on this item, pages 35 to 39. And I'll just, Tracy's still with us. I'll ask if any councillors have questions on the report. No, okay. So we're prepared to confirm this. That's moved by Councillor Kroll, seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. Any discussion of the motion for this recommendation on page 6? No, all those in favor? The motion carries. And we have another contract award, which is also reported on pages 41 to 43. And there's associated recommendations here. And this is a report from the Director of Infrastructure Services, who is going to speak on it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick clarification on a question that was raised at the committee meeting this afternoon. Just the funding for this project is through the grant money that was received by the town earlier this year. Even though it's being completed separate from the remainder of the project, the funding is still part of that grant.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Moved by Councillor DeAndrade, seconded by Councillor Kroll. Any discussion? All those in favor? The motion carries. And I was very impressed to see item 7.4 on the agenda, because I didn't I didn't think we'd get it. So thank you so much, Katie, for putting this information together, because it's been a tight timeline to do this, and I was cautioned that we probably wouldn't get this in time, and I kind of resigned myself to the fact that we probably wouldn't, but it appeared. So it's really helpful to have this report. 7.4 right now on the view protection, zoning, density, and housing in that area where that proposal on Gibsons Way is, because we are hoping to have that public dialogue session that council wanted in September. So this report gives council a chance to see what kind of relevant information the planning department's compiled, and we can ask questions and provide some feedback right now, just to make sure that this is what council was looking for. And unfortunately, Councillor Lumley's not with us this evening. I know he had some concerns, but hopefully the rest of council can fill in. Councillor DeAndrade.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to understand if there's a reason why a report regarding OCP and zoning amendment on a view protection area doesn't talk about the impacts of the rezoning on views on corridors and views in general. We know, I mean, everybody that is paying attention on the rezoning would understand that there will be an impact. What council doesn't understand is how much is this impact. It could be a minimum impact, a medium impact, and to me, when I read the report, even though it covers alternatives, even how can we change the requirement for when we move from R3 to RCL, then the height is no longer an issue, because RCL doesn't have height restrictions. But we don't talk about the impact. So that was a concern for me in this report. But perhaps there's a reason why.
Okay. Are there is there other feedback from councillors? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm still trying to get a handle on the parking allocations for the different zoning. So and it's an excellent amount of information here, but I'm a bit confused by the comparison of R3 to RCL when it refers to parking reduction for the townhouses. So actually, there would be less parking space requirement for the RCL than, can you confirm that for me, please?
I can, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the R3 zoning allows for single family and duplex, and then, R3, yeah. So then RCL allows for 2 more options, apartments and townhouses. So when we're looking at the parking comparison, R3 and RCL are the same for single family and duplex. What we find is in the RCL, they have a reduced parking requirement from any other multifamily zones in the town of Gibsons. So for townhouses, in the zoning bylaw, you would have 2 parking spaces required, but under this zoning, you're only required 1 space. And then for apartment use, other multifamily zones allow for ask for 1.5 spaces, and in this zone, it asks for 1 space.
Thank you.
Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. I think one of the critical things in this is the public engagement. And I don't know whether we have the capacity to do it. And it was something I was thinking as Councillor Dendretti was expressing her concern is, do we have the capacity, like, for example, when we had the review of the proposed development on Lot 23, they did a sort of a computer graphic, not suggesting that it be an architecturally designed building, but if you put a block on this piece of property and it's this zoning and they're allowed to go to this height, view-wise, what would the impact be? And do we have the capacity to be able to provide, because it's confusing for the public, but if they can see, if it goes to that, it's going to be this, and that's going to be the impact. So my question would be do we have any capacity to be able to do any model or photographs or visuals that would enable people to be able to physically visualize what we're asking for?
True. I want to clarify this too. Is this for a specific development or kind of more? I mean, I think the official community plan is definitely going to be doing this when we get into that. There's been talk about, and we have a budget set aside for this, for the official community plan. We wouldn't have budget set aside for this on a smaller scale. And furthermore, I think for a particular development, we'd want the developer to be paying for it, right? And we'd ask them to do this kind of work. So I just want to clarify, Councillor Kroll.
Well, what we're potentially doing here is we're looking at 6 lots that we're saying we're changing, potentially going to rezone to permit, and we're asking for public engagement, but I was looking for a way that we could simplify visually the impact of what we're suggesting could happen. Like, I realize computer-generated flybys are, it's a lot of cost involved, but, maybe we just have balloons on strings or something and take some photographs.
Okay. I'll look to planning.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. I think what you're asking for is some modeling, and in-house right now we don't have that capacity, so we would need to look at a budget. I think that when we're looking specifically at the view protection area, it speaks specifically to setbacks and to the gross floor area of specific buildings. It doesn't speak to height. So we have to look back at the R3 zone for the maximum building height, which is 8 meters right now. If we're looking at the RCL zone, the maximum building height is either 8 meters or 8.5 meters, depending on how steep the pitch of the roof is. If you were thinking what the impact of the view is, if you had multiple buildings on the site and you had more gross floor area, you would need a model, and we don't have that right now.
Councillor D'Andretti?
Yes, and I think if the purpose of the report is to inform council and the public, then we are not really informed, because this report talks about possibilities. with, oh, we can rezone to RCL, and then the height is solved, but you don't solve the issue of the view. So we need the modeling. If what I'm thinking is I understand that, I even support that we look at this area as a whole instead of just doing spot zoning. But if we don't have the budget, then we can consider just one lot, how this will impact is another option, right? But we do have, because the difference is basically the current bylaw allow for one principal building with a 7.5 meter setback, both front setbacks and the rear setback. So the house, it's central. So there's a lot of view. So, and even the other, whether it's a garden suite or the other structures, they are smaller. The moment that we allow the RCL, now we are not only shrinking 3.5 the setbacks, but now we're talking about 2 buildings. And that's completely different scenario. It's gonna block views. And maybe it's not a big block, and that's the issue. The thing is, we don't know. I don't feel confident in making any decision without really understanding the impact.
Okay, but there's no decision before us right now. It's just, we're just looking at this report and kind of determining if there's any more information that we need to support a public dialogue. Councillor D'Andrade.
Yeah, and that's exactly what.
Focus on that, yeah.
And that's exactly what I'm saying, because how we can go to the public and ask, but it's a guessing game for them too, right? For the people affected, how do they know that the 3 meters, as opposed to 7, 1 building, and now we have 2 buildings and at 3 meters? So we need to have some modeling.
Councillor Thompson?
I agree. I think it's an excellent report, and the information is very thorough, but it's a challenge for those of us to sort of get, for me in particular, to get my head around exactly how spatially, things would fit. Setbacks, as you said, reduced in half with 50% lot coverage. All the information is here. It's very specific. It's just hard to visualize. And I think when we're looking at such an important part of our area, we're taking, 5 corners, which is a very complex, and the second or, other most complex area is just at the other end of that road at School and Gibsons Way. I certainly want to be very sure, that we all, and we're communicating to our community, how this could look and what the impact would be.
And it's mostly impact on views, so we're talking about here. I just want to clarify that, so.
Yeah,
Councillor
sorry,
Thompson.
it's impact period views, but, also just getting a sense of congestion.
Let's go to Councillor Kroll.
I'm not faulting the report. I think what they're telling us, the information is all there. I just have a really difficulty going to the public and the questions that they're going to ask. How's it going to impact on me? If there's 2 residents immediately behind this area and then another half dozen the next lot up. I realize that the property to the south of them has different zoning on it and there's different height, implications there. But it is potentially going to make a big visual impact, a density impact, and a potential height impact that people are going to ask us, well, how's it going to affect me? And I don't know at the moment that we have the tools we need to tell them what they're going to give them the answers they want. Well, I'm not even saying, I shouldn't say the answers they want because they're not going to want their view obstructed. But, we need to give them an answer that there is a potential impact or there isn't a potential impact. And if we don't have the capacity to give them some sort of visualization of it, then,
I think we have to keep in mind, we do make decisions like this all the time, like all councils do, though. I mean, we can't, we do see, staff reports that talk about density and talk about parking and that's the kind of information we have that's right in front of us today. And to be able to say, definitively, how's it going to impact me? I don't know if we can ever answer that except for the kinds of data that we have in front of us. I am hearing councillors about, having some kind of schematic, but I'm really concerned about going down the road of taxpayers paying for that kind of effort and cost for every neighborhood or cluster of 6 properties. CRCAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just think that this report, when I was reviewing the report myself, the motion is to bring report with information. It's not an impact assessment report. We would have told you, it cost tens of thousands of dollars to view each site from different areas with different heights and different densities. That's a completely different report. It certainly wasn't our understanding. So this is background information. If it was just, here's the assessments, but this is sort of the details of what's involved in that. It wasn't meant to provide you with an options and impact assessment of these specific lots. The time that we had in 3 weeks or so to produce this report, and the cost alone was quite extensive for something like that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, if we had 3 months to do the report, though, that we would have come out with a model of.
The cost would be the.
Yeah, there's a cost. That's the challenge, right? Councillor D'Andretti?
Mayor, with regards to decisions, yes, we've made many decisions, but the decisions about view protection we have denied because it is a complex thing. I take the view protection serious because the name says by itself, it's a view protection area. So I'm not willing to go forward without really having the understanding. And I believe the public would feel the same. If I'm resident, I want to better understand what impact I'm having. It could be a minimal impact. But perhaps the solution, we didn't contemplate the cost when we propose. Perhaps the best solution is go back to the developer and then he does the modeling for his property and let's see what the public does. And then we wait for the.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah. Is that a reasonable, we're doing this dialogue separately. This was council's request to look at the area. But if we want to look at this specific property and the request that the property owner has made, is it reasonable to ask for the property owner to come up with kind of what council's talking about today?
Through you, Ms. Mayor, I think it's certainly possible and we can definitely ask. And it might have a cost implication to the developer and that'll be up to them to decide whether to go forward or not.
Okay, Councillor Kroll.
I'm certainly prepared to take this to the public because I think, public engagement is critical. I just was hoping that we might have a better toolkit to address some of the questions that they're going to be asking. But I'll move this. I certainly agree.
There's no motion needed. I don't think there's.
Well, we have to.
Is there something I can't see here? It's not on the front page of the agenda anyway.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what it would be.
But no, I'm certainly in support of public engagement around this potential rezoning. And certainly if the developer, the proponent of the subject property that that came to us before is willing to, even just do a cross-section through his project with some heights that we'd be able to get a better visualization of, that would be helpful.
Okay. Corporate officer, do you have a?
You were looking for the motion, the only
There's no motion.
No, it's just to receive the report.
Okay, Councillor D'Andretti.
When, I don't know what staff has in their agenda about the dialogue, because I know we don't have motion, but this was to inform something that we were going to have a dialogue. So is there any dialogue planned, but is there a date at this point?
It's tentatively planned for September, I know that much. Yeah. Councillor Thompson?
I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused where this lies in the process of, I thought we gained this information, we asked for this information so that we could see what looking at an expanded zoning area would look like. And so now are we actually considering taking that whole carved out area to the public for consideration? Or are we just talking about the one single development that was on the agenda when we requested this information be brought forward?
The former of what you said.
The one,
No. No. The
so we're
block.
bringing the block to
That's
the
what,
public?
that's what council's direction was, so that's, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, thank you again for getting this report to us before our August break. It's yeah, definitely helpful for us to plan for September now too, because now we have this in hand and council's been able to look at it. So now we can work on setting that date. Next, we have the strategic plan, and there's been more minor changes on this in the last week after it came to committee of the whole, I'm quite happy that this has come to count. This is this hopefully final draft is in front of us for consideration of approval. So much work has gone into this from council first talking about the strategic plan very early in our term to staff being engaged in this work in a unprecedented level, and I'm really proud of the work everybody's done on this. So it's great to have it before us today. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. There's a few things I'd like to say about this. First of all, I think credit should be given to, yourself and staff that, we've done this without bringing in consultants and booking meeting rooms all over the place and catered meals, and you can just hear the old cash register going ching, 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 ching. So, and as far as I'm aware, we're probably ahead of the other governments on the coast with their strategic plans. Something I did miss about this process was the getting together as a group. When you're dealing with new people on a team, it's really good to find out what their passions are, and it's hard to get that out of emails. And in some cases, changes were made and you were not really sure sort of why the change happened. And I just feel it's really important as a group to be able to sit down and face one another and see what people's passions are. And I felt that was missing from this process. Our last strategic plan was, it was sort of a prolonged process, but we had the engagement before we brought the project face forward to the public. And I felt a little bit that we brought this project forward on 3 occasions. It came out sort of 3 times to the public. Public didn't really have engagement in the process, but it was sort of a work in progress. And when we delivered our last strategic plan, it was delivered as a finished package. And, I think everyone was fairly proud of the part that they had in it. I'm not denying that people shouldn't be proud. Like, I've huge credit to communications for the work they've done. Visually, I think it's really great. My understanding is that staff had the opportunity to probably maybe have a little more input this year than they've had in the past. And I think that's critically important because, you know, we can approve it, but they're the ones that are going to have to do the slogging to make it happen. But I just sort of missed that face-to-face engagement that we had the last time. But I would certainly move the acceptance that we approve this document.
Okay. I'll discuss it further, but if a motion's been made, we need a seconder on that. Seconded by Councillor DeAndrade. There wasn't a lot by email, really. I mean, that I can think of a lot. I mean, we did have three sessions together as a council to set direction on this. And it's true. This plan. A lot of the objectives were populated by. Some of them we recognized from those early sessions, but others were populated by staff based on capacity and based on work that's already being done. So that's a lot of that work was done that way. I think having three sessions is, I don't know how, I mean, I know a consultant had to be brought over from Cowichan Valley last time. I don't know how many sessions were done with that consultant last time, but SCRDs, I'm right in the midst of the SCRD process, they're having about the same, it's going to be 3 board sessions anyway, and then there's some staff session. So I hear you, Councillor Kroll, about the importance of getting together, and I think one thing we can really commit to is continue to do so on this plan and have reviews of the plan, and not just, it doesn't have to be that's something I think is really important, and we talked about right off the start too, is to get together and do planning review sessions and kind of do updates on how it's going, and allowing council to have those informal discussions that you're talking about. So I think that I think we can certainly keep having those discussions, even though we do have I'm not hearing from anyone. I'm open to hearing from anyone. I'm pleased that it's been moved. If there's any problems with the plan, it's kind of more the process of having those discussions. So I think we can commit to having those discussions going forward. My personal feeling is it's really important to not just put a plan on the shelf, and make it a constant in our governance, and consider it every meeting, and not just kind of review it with a checklist even once a year, but to look at it a lot more frequently. So I think there'll be more opportunities for those kinds of discussions. Councillor DeAndrade.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate what Councillor Crowe said, because what I felt that the process was great until it was. Actually, I really appreciate that you work really in depth with staff. So this part I really appreciate. And suddenly, and even I spoke with you, Mayor. Okay, when are we gonna get together? Because I wanted to see the compilation and the new draft, and suddenly the draft was in the agenda. That was like, what? And then when you start like, well, what about this? And even details, for example, right now, the objective, just an example, right? Objective, sorry, I don't have my mouse. Affordability, and I don't know, my computer is funny here. Sorry, it talks about encourage long-term encourage encourage secondary accessory suites, and in my mind is for long-term rental, because and we cannot have this discussion because it's already here. So I particularly feel my fear of, let's encourage, because what happened last time, we encouraged garden suites, we encouraged a lot of accessories built, and suddenly.
I can assure you that that's unquestionably the intent, and if you want to change it, it doesn't change the plan, so we can change that. But that was council's intent.
But that's what
we all know that.
That perhaps a word for one person, because it means so much. I saw the impact. Many garden suites now becoming STR. So to me here, I would love to see for a long-term rental. But this is a discussion that you can do at the end before even the public sees the final. So that I appreciate, yeah. And I hope that any planning moving forward, we can do that, right?
Yeah, it was a very different process. I look back at it and I would do it differently next time for sure. But it's kind of a challenge to engage staff the way we did because it meant the CAO and I meeting with every department and then setting that schedule up took time too. So, and then having a survey that was sent out to all the staff as well. And that then council had to wait for that and it took longer. Honestly, it took longer than I expected and I take full responsibility for that. And, but I think, next time, I think we need to plan it out right from the start and kind of figure out when those dates of taking it to staff would be and how long the staff survey would take. And it just all took longer than expected. So then it was kind of once we got all that staff input, it was kind of a rush to get it all complete. So, I mean, I think the final result is excellent. But that's the process. Yeah, that's how the process went. Councillor Kroll.
Not to take what I was saying as a criticism, it was just something, a component of the process that I missed was, because even, when we have new people at the council table, it's nice to know what their triggers are, what's in their mind that's important to this process and to the community. And the same with staff. Like, we have new people on staff. Hey, it's nice to know that, someone is going to champion a certain area because it's what they've brought forward. And I just feel not being able to put faces to some of the components of this is something I miss this time.
Well, we should all own it. We shouldn't be, yeah. I mean, I hope we all can. Yeah. I mean, it's rather than saying, oh, this point is so-and-so's point and that point is so-and-so's point. I'm just hoping it's something that we can all get behind, and that was the intent. Yeah. I mean, I've seen plans like that too, where it's kind of like, okay, this section is for Councillor so-and-so, and this one's for. I feel really. I feel really confident that, especially in the conversations I've had with council, that we can all get behind this plan, each and every one of us, and it's something that works for staff as well. So hopefully that's Councillor Thompson. Hopefully that proves true.
Yeah, and I appreciated that we had the opportunity, and it was a great reflection of this council that the main objectives were all there, and we have that intent, and we can challenge the getting there, but we were able to agree on the bigger points, and it's reflected so well here, and with the support of staff is great. Feels good.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this then. Okay, Councillor D'Andretti.
Yeah, on that note, obviously, it was good to get out the criticisms, but I'm really proud of this plan, I think, and I want to thank you for the leadership and obviously the work. I don't think the timing was an issue at all. We are ahead of the SCRD, and perhaps I don't even know how Seychelles is, but I think you did a very good job in leading, and I think the plan reflects where we are, even the 4 areas and the lenses. So I'm happy. I'm very happy and proud and willing to now make this, our obviously focus on what is here, and from here we can distill details of the work plans or whatever we want, or the budget, whatever we want to go. So I really appreciate it. And for saving $15,000, maybe $20,000.
Yeah, probably 20, yeah. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the plan? That motion carries. And now we have council reports. 8.1, thanks for the submissions of council reports this month, and to Colton, who's not here, who gave us his activities of the last couple of months. Are there any questions on those reports? Any points like the SCRD? No. Councillor Kroll?
I would just like to comment, I referenced earlier when we were discussing the permissive tax credits, that following the decision that we made on the Tuesday, I had a meeting with a group in the community that have a large potential property, totally underutilized. I invited Kelly Foley to the meeting, and Kelly did a Reader's Digest condensed version of the social housing needs report. And as I walked into the meeting, I had our MP Patrick Weiler on the phone. And I told him where I was, what I was doing, and where we were to date. And he's been well aware of this project. Two things that impacted was, one, the fact that these people only got their permissive tax credit for a year. That sort of got their attention. And the fact that to this point, a project had been proposed to them and they wanted to do a phased development. And the MP suggested that he was more than happy to go to bat on this project. But if it was to be a phased development, CMHC wouldn't even touch it. So
Because of the cost.
it just puts the cost right through the roof. So I thank council for the support with that motion on just the one-year term, because I think it's made a few people think that they can't just sit back for the next 4 years and do nothing. So Kelly Foley has agreed to get this group someone to coordinate the project, someone to take them by the hand and get the funding they need to get moving. We mentioned the accelerator fund, that there's potential funding there that might be available to facilitate this project moving forward. So finally, there is wind in the sails on this project. And this has been going on since February of 2019. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kroll. And that's, those are our council reports are all written. And our next meeting will be after the August break, September 5th at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn? Councillor D'Andrade, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? The motion carries.